Welcome to NFT Tokenomics Office Hours, Episode 6. My name is Nicholas. Office Hours is a new show that gives NFT and DAO creators a critically constructive environment for workshopping their project's tokenomics. Jango and I are here to help people with a project or community to refine their sense of who their audience is, what they're uniquely well positioned to monetize, and how to go to market. On this week's episode, we meet with 3 creators. First, Jacob from ComicsDAO joins us to discuss the lessons from his 25 years in the comics industry and how he's applying those lessons to selling physical and NFT comic art associated with the Nouns DAO. Second, Jin from OpenVoxels returns to discuss continued experimentation, selling artwork to fund OpenVoxels' archival work. Finally, we're joined by digital artist Nacho Frades for a brief chat about his upcoming collection of over 100 one-of-one digital artworks. If you have feedback, please send me a DM on Twitter at Nicholas with 4 leading N's, or drop into the Juicebox Discord at discord.gg/juicebox. Start a thread for your project in the Project Creators channel, or join the Office Hours thread for a discussion of this show in particular. If you'd like to discuss your project with us on air, please drop into the live recording each Wednesday at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time, 2120 UTC. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, not much. How's it going?
It's going super well. Hello, everybody.
Hey, welcome.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. How's it going? Did you collect your Blur airdrop?
No, I have no idea how it works, and it scares me.
Great. Makes sense.
It's one I have a basic understanding of it, but it's kind of like I understand it well enough to know that it's not really the thing that I'm about.
Sure. That makes sense. I imagine there's some people who will not claim things on the basis of the ethics of them. That makes sense.
It's not necessarily ethics. It's more, I believe, stay in your lane, do what you're good at. And I am good at certain things, and Blur tokens, not one of them.
Fair enough. I mean, I think it's just an ERC20 airdrop with no obvious value that people are selling is the short version. Although some people have been holding. I don't know.
I get the feeling that there are like game mechanics behind it. It's kind of like there are people playing chess, and I've only learned how to play checkers. And so I'm like, hey, either I learn how to play chess or I just don't pick up the game.
Yeah, I think the chess is between OpenSea and Blur, and the rest of us are pawns in their game. But
that sounds about right.
Sometimes you can make some ETH along the way. Anyway, this is not about Blur, as interesting as it might be to some people. We're going to talk about ComicsDAO, right?
Yes, absolutely. ComicsDAO and everything ComicsDAO.
All right. So what's on your mind today in regards to NFT tokenomics?
Well, we predominantly have been focused on the physical space, such as making physical comics. But when we talk about NFT tokenomics, we've definitely tried to play around with it some, such as creating NFTs that have a link between the physical and digital product. And creating kind of unique digital offerings that can connect physical product in a unique way. The example that I'd give would be generative comic book covers and things like that, where you can only really accomplish this digitally, but when you connect the NFT and the physical product, you can then create kind of like, I'm not going to say a new kind of NFT, but potentially a new experience, and also an experience that might speak to people who aren't in the crypto community.
Makes sense. And what are all the projects that you've launched so far?
We currently have one project that is actively being launched, and that's kind of Nouns project. And apologies for the dogs; they want to give their opinions as well.
No problem. That's the cover art generative collection.
Yeah, so we've actually created an entire comic book on it. We've done the first 2 issues, so that's 22 pages of art each. So the generative cover gets you a generative cover, but it actually also gives you the opportunity to print that generative cover on a physical book and have that physical book stored with an NFT linking to the physical book so that you could actually trade it as an NFT as well.
Wow. And can you get the physical if you want it, or does it have to be custodied?
So the idea is, to me, what drove me to crypto is the concept that you can create a digital experience that can closely mimic a physical experience. And for example, when you own something, you aren't limited in where you're allowed to sell it, how you're allowed to sell it, what royalties you charge when you sell it. You're not limited in how you consume it, read it, eat it, whatever. There's all these things that you can do in the physical space, and especially around Web 2, it seemed to be really about like limiting your experience. You buy something from Kindle, you can only read it on the Kindle. You can't bring it over onto iTunes. You couldn't print it out, couldn't do anything. And so the idea behind all of these things is when you own the physical product and it's curated, you could do whatever the hell you want with it. You can burn it. You can send it off for grading. You could send it to your house and read it. You can give it to your kids, or you could sell it, trying to give that physical experience in the digital realm.
Very cool. And that's cool that you're doing the print on demand based on the generative collection. That really adds something to it.
Yeah, so the way it works is we've sold the product into comic book stores through Titan Comics. And so we are already printing the physical comic. And so to print an additional cover on top of that, it's not like, cheap as in it costs pennies on the dollar, but it's something that becomes possible. Whereas if I were to just print an entire physical comic book, just a one-off, that would probably cost like $1,000.
I see. That's interesting. So how did you, I guess you have a background in this to be able to know Titan and to have this distribution possibility?
Yeah, I've actually been doing this for 25 years. I've worked for anybody and everybody that you can think of. I made Transformers comics, Games Workshop comics, Spider-Man, Muppets, Frozen, all of that stuff. So I've been doing this for a while, and the idea behind ComicsDAO was to bring this experience into the crypto space, because there's a lot of art, there's a lot of creativity, and there's a real sense of collectability, but there's not a lot of narrative storytelling there.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that with Nouns. There's not a lot of character in the Nouns collection so far.
Well, I see the Nouns collection actually really speaks to me. Like from an aesthetic value standpoint, it is very intriguing and appealing. It's really a matter of just being able to tell the story.
Right. But are there any, I just, from all the advertising and stuff I've seen, I've never seen a noun with a personality. Do they have any personalities yet?
Well, I think part of that is how NFT collections work. The idea behind, I think Bored Ape is a great example of, you own the NFT, so you own the copyright to it, so you get to define it. And the inherent problem behind that is, well, okay, so if you define your, NFT, how does it interact with other ones? And I think the same thing holds true for nouns. So the noun owners are the ones who are allowed to define what world they live in, how they operate, how they interact. And unless you have a cohesive system causing everybody to operate together, it's just not going to go anywhere. And so when I communicated with the nouns people to work with them, the idea was to really just go off and create something unique, almost without the input of any nouns people.
Yeah, that seems to be important, to be able to sort of get permission to then do something without making everything into a DAO vote. So in the comic, do you develop the characters' narratives a little bit more?
Yeah. So whenever you're approaching this kind of narrative project, you want to, first of all, get the tone. And so for me, the tone was the Muppets as written by Mel Brooks.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so the nouns have that kind of frenetic personality that they're almost a force of nature, and the goal of the comic is to leave you exhausted at the end of the reading.
Awesome.
And kind of like the Muppets, where it's like they go like bang, 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 and you're like, oh my God, slow down a second.
Reminds me of Animaniacs.
Exactly. That whole philosophy, it really felt like, nouns like should have been a Looney Tunes cartoon from the 1940s.
Right. Wow, that's going to be great. I'm excited to read it. So how can we help you in terms of NFT tokenomics and whatever else you're thinking about?
I am interested in how NFTs can work with narrative storytelling, with physical objects, and with things like that. So we played around with generative covers. We had another fun thing that we're doing, which is we actually have cameras mounted at the printers, and we're doing video of the books as they're being printed so that we can define the first book that's ever printed, the second book that's ever printed, the third book that's ever printed, and we're going to number the first 420 copies.
I'm very curious. How are you doing the physical fulfillment? How are you handling collecting postal addresses and things like that?
Well, and so the idea behind this is there's a company called 4K Protocol that stores these items in what essentially amounts to a warehouse, and they create an NFT that corresponds to the physical storage item. They do it for trading cards, sports cards, and some other collectibles. We're working with them to do it for these as well, so that when you buy it, so if you were to go today and buy a generative cover collection or a mosaic collection, which is what we call the basic edition, it would then just link to a 4K storage item. And so you don't have to give your name, you don't have to give your postal address. Only if you wanted to claim it would you then communicate with them in order to facilitate a shipment.
Got it. Very cool. So you're looking to explore further mechanics for connecting on-chain and off-chain assets?
Absolutely. I think that there's a number of interesting connections to be made. I definitely want to play in different sandboxes. I'm making a Blitmap comic right now, and interested in working on loot. But again, for me, I think that not only is there an interesting connection between physical product and digital product, but there is also, in my mind, good mechanics about how to connect to an audience that is eager to interact with you so that you can facilitate storytelling that's, geared to a specific group. And I think that's where NFTs come in.
Personally, I'd be very happy for you to do something in the loot verse. I have quite a few bags, and it's in need of some of that narrative story building effort. So that would be cool.
Well, it's to give you an idea of that, the concept that we're playing around with, and again, we have to just refine it and process it. But the idea would be almost D&D modules where you can take your loot bag, you can connect into a module, and we'll tell the adventure with you as the main character, as defined by your loot bag, so that the story can be inherently unique to every single loot bag and make it appealing to every individual. You can then move from module to module, your character grows more and more, and it kind of becomes almost an epic opus, of your character and their growth from beginning to end.
Very cool. So is there anything related to the physical on-chain question that you'd like to explore further in this conversation, or just share ideas?
I think there's some interesting stuff to be done in particular with, are you familiar with sports cards at all?
Not much. I know Magic cards a little bit.
Give me like 30 seconds to run down this and it might make sense where I'm going.
Great.
So for the last probably like 30, 35 years, and especially in sports cards, we've tried to figure out how to physically provide a collectible experience that's unique, but within a very small package. The idea being that they would cut up jerseys in order to be able to put them into sports cards so that they could gift them to you, that kind of thing. When we're talking about kind of NFTs representing physical objects, digital experiences and everything, I definitely, for me down the road, I see being able to have like sports card packs that are physical and digital that can exist in both spaces that would represent, an actual jersey. So you wouldn't have to cut it up. Probably the most egregious example of this is Upper Deck in, I want to say, the 1990s, actually cut up an Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first appearance of Spider-Man. And they mounted the panels into trading cards as a collectible experience. And so my hope is with this that we can figure out how to work with, those people in order to create something where it's like you could actually win the entire book and you don't have to deface the damn thing.
Sorry, can you explain the last part again? How could you win the whole book without defacing the thing?
Well, see, if you had if you opened up a pack of cards and there was a physical card that was linked to a book in storage via an NFT, you could actually redeem that card for the NFT and then choose whatever you wanted to do with the book. And so you would be able to package things that, weren't able to be packaged in, say, a sports card pack, in an easier manner to interact with.
Got it. Very cool.
How are you managing distribution and your treasury and kind of more the operational bits along the way? like how are you expressing these things on screen to people, and like what's working well and what needs work?
In particular with the DAO, you're asking?
Yeah. Like the NFT, like where do people go to interact with the NFTs, and like what's working well from that that distribution means what's still like a work in progress, or something that you'd prefer or you'd see as an improvement.
Well, when we started ComicsDAO, it was with one intention. That intention was to kind of bring physical collectibles into a digital medium. It kind of morphed because when we started ComicsDAO, this was really around the time that, ETH was at almost $5,000 and then immediately crashed to sub 1,000. And I think people just really didn't want to play in sandboxes anymore. We were lucky that the experience that I have over the last 25 years has enabled me to also be like, hey, I can also make books. I don't have to just, scan books, collect books, or anything like that. So we were able to pivot into content creation and such. So I think the issue in particular right now with ComicsDAO is it's difficult to hone in on exactly what it is that we're doing and what our long-term goals are. And I think until we appropriately define that, it's going to be hard to get people to buy into the community as a whole. We've had a lot of great feedback from the Nouns project and such. And we wanted to play in the NFT space and not just the physical content space, which is why we created the NFT collection and such. And so you can go on to the ComicsDAO website, you can then connect through Slice and buy the different collectible packs, and we'll probably do auctions down the road and things like that. But I see this as something that's probably going to take another, my guess would be 3 to 6 months to really connect with the proper audience and community.
Yeah. What kind of uptake have you seen so far? Are people into it? Which kinds of people are into it? Who would you like to get more into it?
Well, so we've seen a decent uptick, definitely, of course, from the Nouns community and within the sub-DAOs. We've definitely seen some people who like the fact that there's narrative storytelling in the space and have now started to come into our Discord and just, start jamming, having chats. We've had other PFP communities reaching out and saying, hey, could we get a comic story told about our thing? And I think that this is how we organically grow the space for ComicsDAO and get people to want to buy into the Juicebox, which is, we initially set this up as a Juicebox process, and to get them to want to participate a little bit, because as people see that there's narrative storytelling happening, and within a fairly quick period of time, I mean, every day we're creating new pages of content. I think that can really get new people involved.
Yeah, I'm curious where that like ongoing content production and be best displayed. Like if the motion is to show the works in progress as things are being made over time, and make basically all of that part of the collectible on its way to like the final product. How like what a tool that allows you to basically like express these ideas somewhat concretely with low effort would be. Is it? Yeah, it sounds like you have a load of ideas that are very well contextualized. They're awaiting finding like the right to actually put it in motion, kind of see what works.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true, and I'll give you kind of like a very concrete example of that in the space, which is probably just under 20 years ago. There was a company created called Comicsology, and the purpose of that was to create a digital reading experience for comics. It kind of became the de facto monopoly in the digital comics reading experience. And it was bought out by Amazon probably about 10 years ago, and within the last year was actually closed down. So right now there's really no mechanism to read comics in a digital experience. And that's just not just in the crypto space, but actually in the entirety of the comic book space as well. So I think we're, as a comic book community, and not just a crypto community, we're still searching for hey, how do we consume this content digitally? And I definitely think that that's really going to be an important factor. Our hope is as we develop content for communities and as we start to do it, we can work with them, get feedback from them. One of the early concepts of Nouns was to really kind of create an experience where every week Nouns members would kind of come in and, vote on elements of storytelling, which characters to include, what art styles to go with, and things like that. And quite frankly, when we had the conversations with them, they were like, no, we just want you to make the book. We think the other thing is just like too complex, but I'd actually love to go down that road with some other communities and kind of have voting mechanics that work through ComicsDAO, where you can vote on what kind of storytelling is happening, what's the art content, what characters are involved, even down to how people are going to act, almost a choose your own adventure driven by a community.
Is there much of a scene of comics readers in NFT space right now?
I think that so what we're seeing with Nouns in particular is we're seeing that they don't really care about the digital offerings. They definitely care about the physical offerings. We've definitely seen some really good pressure into comic bookstores, and things like that. So we know that there's an appetite for the storytelling. And then in regards to comic books, honestly, when you look at many NFT collections and people in this space, comic books are an influence. And so I don't know that the crypto space is specifically sitting down going, man, like we desperately want comic books in our space. But I think that they're open, and comic books already probably exist as a part of their culture for the most part.
Got it. Well, it's very exciting. What are the next steps? Is there anything we can help you workshop or think on in particular? Some specific situation?
Sure. Well, we're largely in the business of selling Nouns comics right now, and so that's going to be kind of our regular jam on a week-to-week basis. Really, it's going to be about getting the digital experience to match the physical experience. That's really the big question mark, and that's the real tough part. I theorize that comic books, in particular, like the comic book format, is probably not the correct format for the crypto space. I actually think that comic strips are the correct format. And, I would love to do kind of like daily comic strips on that kind of thing. And I think that being able to play with NFTs, NFT ownerships, whether it's an open edition, whether it's an auction for the original art or something like that, as a way to drive sales for the daily strips, is probably a more long-term way that you can take care of a community.
Yeah, definitely recurring, anything that can give you the opportunity for some kind of recurring revenues. It seems like models generally break down into either one-time large events with the possibility of creator fee / royalties, these kind of punctual events that increase the total supply and create huge short-term cash infusions into a project, or slower burn projects that drop things over time. Maybe they embrace different drop formats. Like lately, the redemption, burn and redeem model, or the open edition model on Manifold has been very popular. The checks meme was popular for a minute. We had guests last week talking about that a little bit. So you can embrace some of these over time. When you talk about comic strips, the collection that comes to mind is 6529's The Memes collection.
Yeah.
Which is even more compressed, like a one frame. I mean, they're often riffing on NFTs, but more like a Bizarro comic style. I don't know what you call it, the one panel comic.
No, it's absolutely a comic strip. I mean, it's basically the memes are political cartoons. That's kind of how I would classify them.
It's interesting that you mentioned that the derivatives or extension projects off Nouns are maybe even more interested in the project than the mainline Nouns collection. It seems like there's a lot of potential around all the people who are sort of peripheral to the main collection, who maybe have more, engagement with the cultural products created, rather than just being obsessed with proliferating the meme without wanting what those actual products are. So maybe there's something to be done amongst those community, Lil Nouns, or I don't know which other communities come to mind.
And that's exactly what we're starting to do. Like we have a prop on NARS DAO,
Exactly.
which is called Tricky Comics, which is basically a one-page comic on how to do a skateboard trick. Little Nouns is a good example for, they actually have a prop where they have 5 people or like 5 slots, and people are just going to come up with ideas, and the best ideas get funded. Shark DAO, we're creating a kid's story with, and we're doing a special Halloween story with the Bonies. So definitely something that we're trying to focus on. And I think that the big key down the road, like right now, I think we're really just in the creative space on how to create the content, how to deliver the content, mostly in a physical manner, because I think that that's the real unique aspect within the crypto space right now that we're doing. But ultimately, it's going to be, how do you monetize this? Like, how do you create the strip that can be monetized, on a daily or weekly basis, and not, make people exhausted by the end of the first week, because you want this to go on for a year or two.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, NARS is great at this. I don't know how sustainable it is, but they've got a very sophisticated system for publishing videos and splitting revenues between the creator of the video and the DAO, as far as I understand it. And the DAO is like selecting on a daily basis, I believe, the videos that are minted. I'm sure you're more familiar with it than I am, but they have an interesting model. I'm not sure if it's too involved to keep people excited. I think people need to be a little bit more cynical about why NFTs become popular. People are often interested in NFTs because of their speculative potential, regardless of if they're created with that intention or not. That is like a big driver for attention. So I don't know how much of that potential some of these longer form repeated sales mechanisms have, which often drives my thinking towards some kind of utility, for lack of a better word. The perfect example of that being like the manifold burn and redeem mechanism, where you purchase we saw a bunch of different great collections. Mios from Juicebox DAO shared this Little Friends collection that I think is exemplary of this, where you purchase like a sheet of stickers, and then you can redeem any one of those stickers over time by destroying the initial NFT and claiming one of the collection that was on that original sticker sheet. That's great, especially if you continue to sell the original sticker sheet, but maybe the window for claiming, say, the Pokemon #1 from your sticker sheet passes. Maybe you allow people to continue to buy in and purchase those tickets, but they'll never be able to increase the total supply of the token ID #1 or something like that. I think that's headed towards something that is a sustainable model. However, what value those have long term, nobody knows. But as long as people are purchasing the tickets, then there is some kind of revenue stream.
Yeah, and I think for us, for the most part, the initial value add is the story that you're telling. It's the story that you're telling. Compelling, is it interesting? Do people want to participate in it? And that's kind of the first element. And then the second element is...
But they can access that without buying it, right?
They can, at least in particular for nouns, which is CC0. But inherently, we exist in kind of like a collector society. So the best example that I can give you is you can go out right now and spend about $5 and get a reprint of X-Men #1. And for all intents and purposes, it's the exact same, barring some minor differences with the actual X-Men #1. But the actual X-Men #1 is worth about $50,000, and the reprint is worth $5. The story isn't the collectible aspect. It's the moment in time and the connection to the moment in history that I think really makes it important. And so even though a project is CC0, even though you can post it online for free, that connection to the moment of inception, I think, will still give value to it.
How long after the publishing of that X-Men copy did it increase in value?
Well, okay, so I will say that I think that X-Men is probably not a great example, because that was published in 1962. And while it did have a collectible aspect, it really skyrocketed in the last 25 years. But I can tell you, for instance, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1, when that was published in the 1980s, it was within the same year, it had skyrocketed in value because it was such a zeitgeist.
It is interesting. I mean, are you selling all those comic books, especially the ones that took years to take off, were generating enough revenue to keep their publishing houses afloat? before the collectibles were worth anything. They weren't primarily banking on the collectible value of them, although, of course, they were conscious of it. But the revenues that they generated for 10, 20 years were from selling comics directly, not from warehousing hypothetically future valuable collectibles. But now we live in a market, especially in NFTs, where the future speculative market on the hypothetical speculative value of these things is often the narrative that is sold to justify their present valuation rather than, who knows. So I wonder if you're trying to sell something that's actually like consumed and used, and it turns out that it's valuable later on, or is it immediately perceived of as something that you should store away because maybe it'll be worth something at some point in the future. I think one thing that's maybe in the balance for whether or not it's possible to sell the narrative that these things are collectibles is to what degree the NounsDAO puts their weight behind ComicsDAO. If NounsDAO was 100% on board, I could see the argument more easily. But if they're somewhat on board, but not, there seem to be some projects and often it's very unclear to me why, but some projects become elevated as NounsDAO champions these projects. Versus others that seem very intelligent that don't get that same level of support. So I wonder if the collectability aspect of the tokens depends on how strong of a connection it establishes with the core NounsDAO members.
Well, and that's so I can tell you that the Nounders are actually buying 1,000 copies of each comic book because they believe that the total print run is going to be lower than it should be. And so they believe that it will have an inherent collectability value, from the outset. And so them doing something like that ahead of time definitely gives us the ability to be able to say, hey, the Nounders believe in this, therefore maybe you should too. But to your point in regards to collectability, I think, unfortunately, it's only something that we're going to know in the future after it happens. So in comic books, our comic book is due to come out in the month of April, but we're due to print the comic book in the month of March. And so I will print and ship to the stores, and then we're going to see whether the community goes into the stores to buy the comics. If they do, the price will skyrocket, and there's going to be no more available stock. And so it's kind of one of those interesting things where we actually don't want huge support initially because that could create a glut, and we want people to underestimate it because that is what will make it collectible.
Got it. It's going to be a very interesting experiment. I'm not sure how we can help you, but it is going to be interesting to watch.
Well, hey, just talking about it is helpful anyway. So get the word out, get people to check out the NFTs, to potentially, purchase some and see some interesting mechanics between NFTs and physical product. And, honestly, we are here to experiment and to have fun.
Awesome. Well, great. I wish you the best of luck. Break a leg, and looking forward to seeing the physical version of it. I think it's going to be really cool to hold it in one's hands,
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to see any of the artwork or has any questions, they can just drop by to our Discord, and we're happy to share whenever.
How do they find your Discord?
Through our ComicsDAO Twitter.
Great. Thanks for coming through.
Thanks so much for having me, and I'll talk to everybody later.
Nicholas, I wanted to just say I thought it was important, I thought it was important to have ComicsDAO up on this space, mainly because starting from the very beginning with Juicebox, and then how Juicebox has been able to, through Juicebox, been able to plug into different communities, different introductions, different contributors, and ComicsDAO has evolved as Juicebox has evolved as well. So I thought it was a really cool way to circle back and connect the two.
It is very cool. I think it's great to see ComicsDAO spanning across these different protocols and communities to try to create something that's not deeply anchored with a single partner or protocol or community, but instead can span them and develop into multiple categories. I think that's kind of the nature of the space right now, that it makes sense to do that.
And we definitely look at Juicebox as a system that will have long-term benefits. Within our space, the comic space, Kickstarter has been really important for about a dozen years. And I think that this is basically Kickstarter on Steam.
Definitely. Awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious about the DAO operations as well, but I guess it's early days for that yet. If anyone in the audience wants to come up and talk about their projects, we've been talking about ComicsDAO for a bit. Happy to continue, but if anyone else wanted to ask about their own project, we also have some time to have some variety too. Does ComicsDAO have like DAO voting currently?
Currently set up. It is something that we will look for in the future as we start connecting multiple communities.
Great. Look forward to seeing that evolve. Jin, welcome. How's it going, Jin?
Hey, it's going good. How's it going with y'all?
Going great. It's been a few weeks since we've heard from you on the show. How are things? How's the experimentation with OpenVoxels going?
It's good. We got the new cycle is live. Do y'all hear me? Because I think the UI is lagging. Okay, cool. And we kind of also have some really dank videos in the pipeline. I just published a new blog post detailing how archiving leads to interop, and I just overall think OpenVoxels is like an iceberg of a concept. At the surface, people are like, "Oh, look, crypto voxel stuff," and maybe people are like associating it with like their bags are down bad or something. But like, there's so many other things going on beneath the surface, such as this could be a vehicle for various metaverse projects to find ways to align together, by working on something kind of unrelated, but sort of tangential, because, they have a great voxel editor, and there's now a snapshot tool which you can bring your creations, like at least the base meshes, and potentially in the future, the light maps as well, into other platforms. So instead of other platforms feeling pressured to have feature parity and do these really hard things that Voxels already solved, we have like this great lab and this great case study of, positive sum alignment between platforms. And I'm just super enthusiastic. And we got a super dope video about what the next cycle is and how like people can get some swag for contributing to it. And I'm still bullish on the name OpenVoxels. People are like, no, maybe not great to have so much voxel association, but there's so many like metaverse interop orgs. You've got Open Meta DAO, you've got Metaverse Alliance, Open Metaverse Alliance, Open Metaverse Interoperability Group, Open Metaverse Foundation, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and they all have these huge, lofty, ambitious goals. And I just want to do something that's more honest, more scoped, more focused, and just like taking a bite out of, let's try and create a Silk Road between, these nodes over here. There's a lot of value and there's a lot of history, like wearables and voxels was the first 3D wearables with the NFT metadata pointing to the files, to 3D files. A lot of early connectors got, and builders and now like famous people in the space got their start in Origin City, so there's a lot of stuff I want to preserve, and I want to build the foundations of the Metaverse archive. I got to start somewhere, and so just kind of been rolling with it. Not really getting too many new, too much new S in the Juicebox yet, but we'll see after we drop this video if excitement boosts. It's got like a Y2K aesthetic. It's pretty dope. It reminds me of Dreamcast.
Awesome. And what are the NFTs on sale right now in, I'm just pulling up the page for OpenVoxels.
Yeah, so it's kind of a twofer. So you could, for point two, have a choice. I don't know if you've ever played Gaia Online. Do you know what I'm talking about? Gaia Online, that one forum anime game back in the day?
I've heard about it, but I never played it. No.
Okay, so they have this mechanism where supporters can donate, and then every month you get a letter, and in that letter you can choose between two pieces of digital swag. It was like their NFTs, right? And every month, you would pick between these two, and over time they would get rare, kind of like party hats. They never come back again. So this cycle, we're doing like generative art, and you can pick one of the two aesthetics, but you can also leave in a memo your parcel ID, and we will generate and airdrop something unique for whatever that parcel ID is. We'll generate an art piece and that aesthetic for you and airdrop it. So you get two if you want to do that.
We talked about this the last time you were on the show, about creating derivative works on the basis of the artwork in somebody's parcel, as a form of aesthetizing the archival process, I guess, turning it into art.
Yeah, exactly. Making art out of history, and having something that you can kind of be proud of showing, and kind of adding a little bit more utility to parcels, not just as like this place in the metaverse, but also something that looks aesthetically really cool on the wall in other places,
So I could see someone like maybe the Lexicon Devils crew, every time there's a forming concert and they totally revise the space, the Juicebox Learning Center or Transit Center, they could buy one of these and sort of create an artwork on the basis of that work, which will eventually be torn down and replaced with something else for the next concert.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of a way to honor these snapshots, more than just a screenshot or something that, it's that we can create by having access to 3D files as well.
Hey, are you already targeting certain events or communities that are activating in voxels and different ways?
Yeah, the Liz.
Yeah. How's it going?
Oh, we did a panel last week in Hyperfly, talking about other stuff, just like avatar interoperability, but Rizzo was there, and it just, we also just kind of like did some world hopping around Hyperfly, but they're keen on doing more collaborations and activations together.
Right on. Yeah, I wonder how to kind of also like recognize the forming event happening Friday as like a showcase for folks who are less ingrained in voxels world, but already make the effort maybe like once a month to do the voxel the forming events, because it's like incredibly produced and really great artists, but it's not part of their normal cadence to also be like, hey, here's something also happening that takes this whole concept and like stretches your imagination one level further.
We do have grants for artists, so if you use any of the arts from the data sets, because we upload all the 3D files to various places and make some really dope art out of it, you could get some guaranteed mints, a little bit of F for that. We want to propagate Metaverse Interop through awesome art.
Yeah, I see Wacko in the audience. I don't know if I'm curious to hear Wacko's thoughts. Maybe not here now if you don't want to speak, but
Germs too.
It's some point in the future. Oh yeah, in Germs.
One thing that this makes me think is like, they're 0.2 ETH there for these artworks, and it feels like maybe, I'd love to hear from some actual voxel architects, but my intuition is that people put a lot of effort into building out the property, building out the parcels, and they eventually maybe tear them down and recreate them because they don't want to buy a new parcel just to create new artwork. And the parcels are linked places and they become situated like places where happenings occur repeatedly. So you want to change the architecture on top of the space, and you don't want to just purchase new parcels for because of the expense and the shelling point of them.
Yeah, I just kind of slow down there because it's like we don't have when we archive these things and are creating this art right now, we're not doing any of the images or the Vox files or Megavox files. So there's a lot of features that are stripped out that I talk about in the latest blog post, like getting into the details of this snapshot tool that we built with Hyperfly. We can pull down this information, and we do grab all the metadata to recreate everything with all the fancy, media graphics and Vox models. But at the moment, we're just kind of focusing on just like the base cubes, and next the light maps.
Got it.
And then we can build on top, and maybe we can do that next cycle where it's like for a special price, we'll do as good of a preservation as we can of your parcel to immortalize it as a special service.
Which parts get preserved in the current thing? Let's say the Juicebox place as it is today.
As a GLTF file, what we're downloading and archiving at the moment is just the base Vox cubes, the primitive, and the custom tiles that you're using for that. So all of the Vox models that are made in Magica Voxel, you know, we could grab that information, but at the moment we're not attaching it because it blows up the file size, and we want to make it so that you can still kind of explore the skeleton of the entire world. Because with optimization, I'm still able to load everything into Unity, you know, which just barely on a 3080, 32 gigs machine, I'm able to load almost 9,000 parcels. And I've got a really awesome idea for an immersive museum/art gallery, which I kind of alluded to, but I'll drop some alpha here. And it's basically that since we have a snapshot of 2019 and 2022, these two eras, I was thinking, have you ever seen photography where they compose the past and the future together, right where like a picture is taken, they kind of hold up the old picture in front of the new place?
Yeah, sure.
I'm thinking of doing that with old screenshots in the new time capsule like world. So like exactly where that screenshot is taken, you can see a window to the past. And in the old world, it's on the new screenshots of, you know, what it is in the future in there. So it's kind of a blending of the past and the future as a huge art walk kind of gallery experience.
Very cool. Part of me wants to say, you know, this is like, you know, CryptoVoxels is already a very niche interest, and this is a niche within a niche of interest. So I don't know how widely the NFTs will ever sell realistically, unless there is some way that you can create a piece of art that essentially allows voxel architects to do some kind of drop on the basis of the artwork that they commission from you, or someone commissions from you on their behalf.
Oh, that's cool. Like a collab, you know, I could turn their work into like a on-chain HTML kind of thingy.
It would be cool to say like, you know, there's a forming concert coming up. Okay, someone maybe even from Lexicon says, well, we did up this whole space, so we'll gladly give Jin, I don't know, 0.15 ETH to take a snapshot in great detail of the space. Because I think if you're cutting it down the middle between it's an archive, but it doesn't include any of the stuff that you built, really, this seems like a hard sell.
Yeah, that's fine. This is right now an art project, a labor of love. You know, I want to do something to honor the our history, the builders, and do something that kind of I think is beautiful, inspirational, even though it's niche, you know, and I don't expect a lot of sales. I do have some stuff, you know, tricks up my bag for striking a wider audience sort of thing with OpenVoxels, because, you know, I archived all the sandbox game assets, so we have some fun things that we could do there, as well as Decentraland, but I don't know if that's going to be the same DAO, because Voxels, Decentraland, that's not really voxels, but we could do some stuff. But yeah, and if we do some cool drops in the future, then maybe the OGs that cared about these niche things can be rewarded somehow by being OG collectors.
It seems to me like the people who are your fans are, like, your customers are ultimately the voxel architects, and then their fans are potential crossover markets for some ultimate conclusion of OpenVoxels or whatever the name of the organization does. But how in touch I know there's the M3 people who are in OpenVoxels, but how in touch are you with, like, for instance, the Lexicon Devils workers, laborers, whatever, the Lexicon Devils, people like that? Because it seems to me like appealing to them is really what's going to matter for having an impact in the way that you want. Those are the people who care the most.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to do a in-world VR podcast, and like the voxel, I can build like a voxel aesthetic studio, and then maybe me and the Whip crew can do like a podcast in there talking about OpenVoxels, or, you know, some kind of event where we chat about it, and to reach those types of people, because I don't think I'm super in touch with a lot of those builders. I am here and there with some builders. I actively post in the Discord, but it's grown so much, you know, like every time I go around and walk around, I see something new. And it's like I know so much history about my corner of Origin City. You know, if you go east of the center, that's kind of like our turf over there with Makers and Junkyard, but there's so much more history and lore and communities that it's just such a massive space now.
I think a weekly podcast recorded in Metaverse with the architects would be a great idea for trying to establish. And I've said something similar around Lexicon for forming in the sort of underground NFT scene, and I think for you it would apply for the voxel architect, Metaverse fanatic scene, the builder scene. I think there is no like a water cooler for these two communities, and people often end up in their own little silo. And creating a space where people can meet each other is maybe a prelude to them being interested in supporting the archival work that you're doing.
Yeah, and I'm trying to build those types of spaces outside of voxels, you know, so like a VR chat museum, and a Hyperfly like world and stuff like that. So we could kind of get some of those features out of the box, red pill on interoperability, and just kind of like talk about. I think a weekly thing would be cool, but that's a lot of work also. I was thinking for an OpenVoxels campaign, maybe there's some incentive to add a poster to your parcel for what we're doing. Like add a poster and tweet, and you get like some OpenVoxel tokens, and that could contribute towards a eventual like archive snapshot for a flat rate or something.
Yeah, I think there's also going to be some new tool affordances in the near future too that hopefully you'll. It makes me think if we can do storefronts on JB that sell wearables directly into like a voxels or something, or assets or architecture assets or something.
That'd be kind of cool, but like Vox is not a open format. I mean, that's what
Gotcha.
CryptoVoxels uses, and that's cool, but GLB output would be dope.
Exactly. Yeah, it's my naive understanding. It's like I think having that as like browsing and seeing a file type that I didn't recognize it would make me like turn my head and ask the question like, okay, what can I do with this thing?
Yeah.
But I think like posting many different kinds and categorizations of NFTs onto your project hopefully will also let you kind of expand what you have on display there. Right now you just have those two things, but it's kind of tricky to think about how you might organize 10 or 20 or 30 items.
Dude, totally. I mean, there's 4 years of history. Like, there's so much that we've done for OpenVoxels that when people see our Juicebox,
you want to see hundreds of things that date back to like they've been on sale or like it minted out like a year ago, but it's still part of the project, part of the history.
Oh, like a history catalog of
something like that.
Artifacts that something like, yeah, that's cool. I like that.
I would just make sure to be really in touch with folks like Germs and Wacko. I think that's your audience, and I would just do what they, interpret and do a version of what would interest them. Because the reality is that it's hard enough work getting most people to even open voxels. So it's the real voxel architects who are the ones most likely to actually buy something related to archiving that work, or museum work, that kind of stuff.
But there's a lot of OGs that, got their start in voxels, right? Like, look at where some of the early artists and movers and shakers of NFTs are now that, launched in voxels, like Avastars, right? They're still around. They launched in voxels. A lot of great projects did as well.
Do you think Jimmy is going to buy OpenVoxels NFTs? I hate to be cynical, but I don't think he cares. I don't know. I don't know him well enough, but I think a lot of people don't look back. Once they have 100 apes or whatever he has. I think the people you're targeting are. I mean, it really is hard enough to get people to open CryptoVoxels. And it's the easiest one to open. It's hard enough. It's difficult.
It's like
to get
an oxymoron whenever you say that.
I know. Well, it just shows how dire the situation is for all the other ones. But it's hard enough to get people to open it. So the barrier for getting people to travel through archived museum spaces that aren't even the live one seems to me like
it's all good. We can make good videos of it. Inspiring videos. I've been working with a video editor who's really talented, and we're just gonna. That's the most highest distribution, impactful compression method of distributing ideas. So maybe they'll enjoy just the story of what we're trying to build and feel like being part of it is good enough instead. Because I've been hosting virtual events for years through M3. More people always watch the recordings than show up in person. It's like a rule of the internet.
Right. So I don't know what that would have to say with regards to what NFTs you put on sale, but maybe NFTs that are appealing to the people who are watching the videos rather than necessarily exploring the space. I mean, I know there's many things that I explore through YouTube that I have no direct contact with except for YouTube. So maybe there's some way to engage that larger audience that's only watching the videos or reading the tweets.
Yeah, but you're right. It is pretty niche, and Voxels has gone through some highs and lows, but it's still part of metaverse history. And if we don't remember history, if we don't have a mechanism to remember history, then it's going to be constantly overridden by the incumbents who might not share the same values as the ones who built this space. And that's the kind of impending danger that I want to mitigate.
Sure. I mean, to take a card from museums and such, you want a very rich benefactor. It's not the ticket sales that are paying for museums. It's weapons dealers and pharmaceutical monopolies. So maybe you could find one of those.
Yeah. No, and there are some in Voxels. No, I've seen some galleries where they're just like packed with like giga whales out there, and of course they want to be part of history. And if I just had one or two of those, that set for life,
The Jimmy.eth wing of the OpenVoxels Museum. That sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. Like, how they have buildings named after people? Are you thinking something like that?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The Pranksy wing.
Yeah. Whale Shark. Is he still around? He like disappeared.
I think he disappeared. I think he did. I think he bought a bunch of NFTs, never sold anything, and disappeared. And issued an ERC-20, of course. Also, you remember Metakovan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's a huge MetaFactory supporter. That could be the guy.
Is he still around?
Somewhere in South. I mean, I think they were doing something. I mean, can definitely reach out. I think whales are just kind of, some of them are just deep sea right now.
Right. I didn't hear too much from the Metakovan people after B20. I don't know.
Yeah, after that, that's true. But
so that was early days. That was 2021, early 2021, I think.
Yeah, I still have screenshots of that launch event and, that building in Frankfurt, the party that they threw. And my friend had a B20 bomber jacket from MetaFactory, and it was a good quality jacket, but it's just like, I think people, when they see that, it gives them PTSD. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think I got it out of my wallet eventually. I'm not sure if it's still sitting in there. All right, well, Jin, thanks so much for coming through. I'm excited to see what happens next.
Hey, yeah, let me know if you want to hop into the studio.
Oh yeah, you want to share a link and we can all jump in?
Yeah, sure. So the link is hyperfly.io/podcast, and you could just go there in your browser. And this is the smaller studio that I built that fits 2 to 3 people, kind of like a Joe Rogan sort of style venue.
That's hyperfy.io?
No, Y.
Hyperfy. Okay.
Yeah, .io/podcast.
All right, it's loading up. Is there anyone else in the audience who wanted to come chat while we load up the podcast studio? Thanks everyone for tuning in. If this is your first time, NFT Tokenomics Office Hours is a chance to workshop NFT tokenomics for various projects, including DAO projects. Oh, wow. Just checking out the studio now. You got Boombox Head.
Are you on a laptop right now?
I am on a laptop, yes.
All right. Hit Shift 1 on your keyboard and do Shift 1 through 9, and then see how you can change the camera.
Wow, cool. So these are like different shots for like a stream.
Exactly. And so we can do all of our editing pretty much in real time, which saves so much and done in post. And in the middle, there's a screen sharing. So I could we could have a Jamie pull up anything on the screen over there.
Is that ChatGPT I see on the screen right now?
Yeah.
I like how you've got the like shitty LG TV Chrome.
Oh, we could have ChatGPT in a podcast. Now that I think of it.
Jango, what were you going to say a second ago?
No, I'm on my phone, trying to find this link. But I'm looking at Jin's feed now and seeing the post. But yeah.
Oh, maybe that's the business model, Jin.
For what?
Feet pics.
Oh, well, about that, I've got these ENS domains, they're triple F emojis, and it's the whole collection of triple F emoji feet. And I bought them because, they were being shilled really hard like a couple of years ago. And I'm like, oh man, no one's claimed these, so I secured the bag. But now I've been stuck with it and I feel like a clown whenever I try and show them. So I don't know. It's like, anyone who's looking for rare feed domains, let me know.
This is before my time, ethmoji.io. Wow.
No, not ethmoji. These are ENS domains. But it's like, I can just bring it up on the screen what I'm talking about in terms of the...
Great.
Yeah,
I love your Blender mug. Hold on, I'm going to switch. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. They're .eth. They're proper ETH feed domains.
Yeah. So if my podcast don't get sponsored by anyone else, it's sponsored by ENS domains that people could buy to support the open metaverse with.
I love it. Very cool how you can pull up stuff on that screen so easily.
Yeah, total screen share, and also it has audio too, so you could bring up any kind of video. Yeah, let's do a podcast here.
Yeah, we could do one here, and do a video recording too.
Do you have a Quest 2?
I do have a Quest 2. It's cool for the Anon context that you can have a video without revealing people's faces.
All you got to do is hop in the browser on a Quest 2, and then you're here.
Okay, I'm gonna pull that up after the show. Was there anyone else from the audience who wanted to come chat about a project?
Just wanted to quickly shout out. I see Nacho Frades in the audience. The artist that drew the Jango character. It's a big shout out for that piece, and he's got a really cool collection that he's been working on for a while called the Happy Gods that he's been trying to publish.
Awesome.
And big fan of your work, and hopefully that collection makes progress and seeing light of day soon.
That's great. For people who don't know, this is the artwork that Jango uses as a PFP.
Yes, PFP.
Very cool to have the artist in the audience. All right. Well, I guess if no one else would like to chat about a project this week, maybe we can start to close the show out. I guess one other little piece of news for people in the Juicebox part of the ecosystem, we published a new repo to the JBX protocol GitHub, which is the Juice SVG template, which you can use to quickly start spinning up on-chain SVG. Gives you like a little testing suite, just some simple commands and a decent README for explaining how you can generate your own SVGs on-chain in your own project, which you could use. I think the next step will be doing an example of using this for Juicebox NFTs, so people can be doing their own on-chain SVG-powered Juicebox NFTs. So give that a shot. It's Juice SVG template. If you've been interested in doing SVGs on chain, but not sure where to start, it's a pretty good, quick start repo. I think that's it, for me, unless anyone else had any final words. Oh, Nacho. How's it going, Nacho? How are you?
You can hear me?
Yep. Sounds good. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me.
It's good to hear from you, Nacho.
Have you two ever spoken before, verbally?
We had it was a few DMs back and forth. Not sure we've always spoken verbally.
Cool.
But we have a kind of this ongoing like back and forth regarding this Happy Gods thing. There's always like Nacho's is doing some collection in some museum, so you can't focus on it for now, but then he gets back to it later. And like I'm in the middle of another project, can't really help much, but like won't want to help at some point in the future. So we keep going back and forth over time about that one, but hopefully it comes to fruition soon. So anyone who wants to help make a website for a 120 piece collection.
Hi, when you can know.
Yep.
When you have many signs, listen also on things down more for the wars.
So you finished the artwork for the collection already?
The work is strictly finished.
Great. So you're just looking to do the drop now, the website.
Yeah. It's the drop is like the thing to think about. I mean, Nacho is like, I just want to paint dope art and to the line. the drop is going to happen, which is incredible. I'm excited. I think it's a very simple and elegant collection, I think. So I'm curious how the site could look. Nacho is also trying, maybe still in the process of it, actually designing the website for it, then commissioning someone to build it.
Awesome. Yeah, I know Nacho is on Super Rare. I don't know if it makes sense to do in the context of Super Rare, but that is a pretty decent way to just get the word out to collectors. It does seem to succeed. I don't know. Wow, Nacho, you have so many things on Super Rare. I'm just scrolling through your Super Rare. You have like hundreds of artworks.
Yes.
You have 172 creations on Super Rare.
Yes, I am Super Rare December 2020.
Wow.
It's been making a digital art since the like 80s. It's like OG digital painter. Yeah, so I'd be curious to see like the works that came decades before NFTs were even a thing.
Totally.
Cool. Should we call it?
Yeah, let's call it. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming through. This was a good episode. A lot of varied topics. And nice to hear from people who've been on the show previously to see the progress made and continued experimentation. So thank you, everyone on the panel for coming through. Thanks to all the listeners. We do the show every Wednesday at 4:20 p.m. EST. So same time next week. We'll be talking about similar subjects. So thank you all, and see you next week.